What IRS letters really mean and which ones should you really panic over. Welcome to another Tax Therapy Tuesday Live. I am your host, Chastity Grady. And if you're new to me and my company, Grady Tax Plus, it is our number one goal to make sure that we are keeping the IRS out of your pockets so that you can live a better life. Why? Because you deserve it. And so on Tuesdays, I give you a tax therapy topic as it relates to business, finances, taxes, because I am the go to expert in the industry for this particular topic, especially for my social workers and therapists who are in business, who I primarily serve, mainly because my background is as a licensed clinical social worker, making me the go to tax and business finance expert for those individuals. And so here we go. Because listen, we got some things to talk about on today in regards to IRS letters and which ones are not as scary as the others. Let me just say that. Which ones are not as scary as some of the other ones, okay, and what you can do about it. Now we are in the tax season, right? The tax season is typically from January, whatever date the IRS says they're open, until April 15th. Okay, give or take if April 15th falls on a weekday, on a weekend rather. And what happens is that during this time of the season, we're mainly worried about making sure that you are accurately giving us information to prepare your tax return so that there would not be any tax issues later on. And so typically, let me just say this: the IRS, they don't necessarily close when it comes to sending IRS letters, but sometimes there are seasons where there is a pause. Sometimes there are seasons where there is a pause. And so typically during the tax season, you don't really see as many IRS letters being sent out or talked about, right? It's not until after April 15th, which is like May, really June is like June is that month where they send all the letters out, right? Unless you owe a balance, then yes, you'll obviously get a letter. But some of these other letters that I'm going to talk about on today, these are some of the other letters that the IRS could give you. But I'm going to tell you the ones you should really be panicking over. Okay. Again, we're in the tax season, so right now, the IRS is focusing on getting, taxes filed within this season, because although they give you a chance to have an extension, that's not necessarily what they would want, right? Obviously, they would want people to just get their taxes done during the regular season and then not have to worry about continue to filing afterwards. But people's circumstances happens, circumstances change, and that's fine. I put my clients on extensions all the time when there's more time needed, whether you need more time gathering information, or like I said, life circumstances come up to where you don't want to focus on taxes right now. You got other things to focus on, and getting that extension is something that will allow you to be able to wait in peace. Okay, wait in peace, knowing that you won't get a penalty for late filing. Okay, and this is one of the things that happens when you don't file your tax return by the due date, which is April 15th for individual tax returns, March 15th for S Corp partnership tax returns, right? When you don't file your tax return by that due date, the IRS can give you a late filing penalty, right? And I like to think of penalties as an extra tip to the IRS, right? We don't want to give the IRS any tips, right? When I say tip, meaning like when you go to the restaurant and you give the waiter or waitress a tip for serving you, you give them extra money on top of the meal that you paid, right? When you get penalties from the IRS and interest, you're giving them a tip on top of the taxes that you're already supposed to pay. Right? Who wants to do that? And I hear this all the time where people who don't pay estimated tax payments or pay your quarterly tax payments, those mean the same thing. And you're like, oh, I'll just pay it at the end. I'm okay with getting the penalty. You're okay with giving the IRS extra money, right? Remember, our goal is to make sure that we are keeping the IRS out of your pockets. That includes not giving them more than they need, okay, or deserve to have. So you want to make sure that around, like I say, for individual tax returns, I like to say around March 31st is when you start to assess. Am I going to be able to file my tax return within the next 2 weeks, which is April 15th? Am I going to be able to do that? For S Corps and partnerships, around February 28th. because there's only 28 days in February. Am I going to be able to file my tax return within the next 2 weeks? And if not, that is a perfect opportunity to put your tax return on an extension so that you don't have to pay the IRS a late filing fee, a late fee for not making your payments, a late fee for not paying estimated listen, there's so many penalties that the IRS have, and you can at least avoid one of them just by putting your tax return on extension. Okay, so let's talk about some of these letters. Some of the letters that the IRS send would include you if you owe the IRS, right? So you just owe the IRS money. Maybe you just filed your tax return, you owe the IRS money, and they send you a letter say, hey, we're recognizing that you owe us a balance, okay? And if you have any penalties and interest on there, it will show that. And they're just telling you, they're just informing you, like, hey, we know and you should know that you owe us a balance. And they will gently give you a due date to pay your balance by, right? And then they if you don't do anything about that letter, okay, maybe you ignore it. You're like, okay, yeah, the due date has gone and come and gone. Then they will send you another letter, okay, and they will say, hey, we're just reminding you again that you owe us some money. You owe us. You have a balance with the IRS. We're letting you know, okay. And then you're like, okay, thank you for letting me know. I'll get on it whenever I can. And then that due date that they give you on the letter, it comes and goes. But then the third letter is like, hey, we told you that you owe us some money. Now we're at the point to where we want to start levying your bank accounts, garnishing your wages if you don't respond by this due date. And that's the letter, okay? This is the third letter. That is the letter where you want to start be on panic. You have that panic button going on. Okay, because the IRS, in order for the IRS to actually take money from your account, they have to notify you first. They have to notify you of a potential levy on the horizon. Okay, they have to notify you. And if you get that letter notifying you, like, hey, this is your final reminder, that's typically what it would say, your final reminder. After this, it's fair game. After this, we're contacting your bank if we have the information. We go into your job if we have the information. We're coming for our money at this point. And then this is the point where you do want to start to panic. Okay, you do want to start to panic. And oftentimes, what I see is that this is when I see a lot of my clients, a lot of my tax clients, they're coming to me when they have that final reminder that the IRS is saying they're going to levy my accounts. Now, what I want you to know is that typically, this is inside information I'm going to tell you. Typically, you have up to 30 days, typically around the 3 week mark. I don't like to push it more than 3 weeks. But you have about up to 30 days from that letter, from the due date of that letter. So they say, let's say they gave you a final reminder, and they say due date is February 14th. Well, typically you can stretch it up until March 14th. Now, would I stretch it? No, but I'm just giving you some inside information so that you can reduce any panic that you may experience if you become in this situation. Okay, you do typically have around 3 to 4 weeks after that letter in order to get on the phone with the IRS. Okay, and that's typically when I start seeing my clients is that they got that final due reminder, and they're like, okay, now what do I do? What do I do? Okay. And then there's also other aggressive letters where they're actually about to levy. Okay, like they're actually about to hit the go button on the levy, right? And that's something that you really want to be in panic mode. You really want to be in panic mode if after you have received the CP 504 letter, which is typically what it is, the CP 504 or LT 11, and it's a final reminder. The letter after that, if you do nothing, is we're coming. Now we're actually coming. Okay, so that levy. There's many letters that the IRS can send you about, oh, you owe the IRS, yes, you owe the IRS, yes, you owe the IRS. But until they send you a levy, that is the most important letter that you would receive or one of the most important letters that you would receive, and you want to panic because you don't want the IRS getting direct access to your money, right? We don't want them directly in our pockets. We want to be able to control that. And once the levy is actually in place, it becomes a little bit more difficult. That's why we want to do things, take preventative measures. Typically, ideally, whenever you receive the balance due letter, that's when we want to start taking action, because now the ball's in our court. We have a little bit more time to do a few strategies to see what can we do to either lower your balance or lower your payment. We have a little bit more time to do so, right? And once that levy letter starts to happen, the time really shrinks. The time really shrinks down. And that's, like I said, that's panic mode. And we don't want to operate in panic mode. We want to be, in our soft girl, our soft boy lifestyles for 2026. We don't want extra stress giving us unnecessary wrinkles, unnecessary fine lines in our face. We don't want any of that, right? So we want to take preventative measures and not be reactive when that if that letter should come. Okay, that's one letter. Now, there's two other letters that I want to talk to you about. And the reason why I'm talking to you about IRS letters now, so that you are prepared. Yes, I know we're mainly focusing on filing taxes right now, but this is on the other side of the tax return. That's why we have to make sure, and that's why we make sure that we are accurately preparing your tax returns so that you can be prepared if you were to receive some letters from the IRS, okay, so that we can prevent those things. And these other two letters I'm going to talk to you about is how we can prevent getting these type of letters from the IRS as long as your tax return is accurately prepared and is complete. Okay. On the one hand, yes, it needs to be accurate. The information that's provided needs to be accurate. But the other hand is that your tax return, it needs to be complete. It has to be a complete return, meaning that it contains all necessary information. And what happens is when you don't put in all the necessary information onto your tax return, let's say you missed the W 2, you missed the 1099, or you're misreporting a certain type of income, then your return is not complete. And when your return is not complete, you have to remember the same tax documents that you're getting, the companies, they are filing these documents for the IRS. That means that the IRS also knows that you receive a 1099. The IRS also knows that you got 5 or 10 W 2s. They also know this information. This is why you can't leave it off. This is why you can't leave it off of the return, because the IRS also knows this. And that's why you have to file not only an accurate return, but a complete one. And so when you don't file a complete tax return, this is when I'll say around like around June time. And I'll be honest with you, the IRS has been quite quick lately. Typically, it could take like a year or two after you have filed the return for the IRS to come back and say, hey, you remember when you filed this return 1 to 2 years ago? You left off this 1099, you left off this, and now you owe us this. Sometimes they were taking about 1 to 2 years to do that. Now I've seen where right after April 15th, once those 1099s and W-2s post to your IRS account around the May timeframe, the IRS around June and July, they are sending people these letters letting you know that, hey, you just filed your tax return in April. And guess what? It wasn't complete. You have underreported your income, and you either need to correct this or we're going to do it for you. And typically when the IRS is correcting your information, you typically don't want them to correct it, because they don't know all your credits, they don't know all your tax deductions, they don't know what you qualify for, right? And so this is one of those letters called the CP 2000. The CP 2000 letter is when you are getting that underreporting of income. The underreporting, your return was not complete when you filed it. You're missing some things. And this, if you agree with our changes, this is what it'll say. If you agree with our changes, then now we're saying you owe us an additional 5,000. Then go ahead and sign this paper and send it back to us and make your payment. Okay. I don't typically have my clients go that route. And typically the clients that are coming to me, they're coming to me because they're like, hey, the IRS says I owe this extra. I don't know if I do or not. What am I supposed to do? And then that's where we step in and we see, is the IRS correct? They say you owe an extra this. Let's look at this, and let's make some changes. And I'll say Out of all the cases that I've had, 100% of the time when someone receives a CP 2000 and the IRS says you owe us this, 100% of the time the IRS has been wrong. And 100% of the time, I have been able to either help my clients reduce their balance by at least 50% of what the IRS is saying, 40 to 50% of what the IRS is saying, or over 100%. And when it's over 100%, that means I was able to get the client back some money into their pocket. And I'll just give y'all one of the client stories that's coming to mind right now. Is this elder lady who came to me as a client. She tried to file her own tax return by paper. Okay, she went old school with it. She tried to file her tax return by paper. And this is why when people say, oh, you can just do it yourself, it's just a W 2, it's just this, it's just that. Okay, well, she tried to do it by herself. And I will say age is no respect of persons, because there's people who are up in age who are able to complete an accurate tax return, right? So she tried to file her own tax return with her 1099 Rs and her Social Security income. And when she filed it, she made some errors on that return. And the IRS came back to her and said, hey, you owe us $20,000. You have to look at this. This is a woman who's in her 70s. She is widowed. She's by herself. She's living off her pension, off her Social Security income, and the IRS is telling her that she owes 20 what? $20,000. And this was weighing heavy on her. They gave her that CP 2000 letter, and her son, he was an accountant, and he didn't know what to do. Okay, that's why not all tax professionals are created equal. Sometimes people are asking for, oh, I need an accountant, oh, I need CPA, oh, I need that, and most of them can't even tell you how to deal with certain things. She went to her son, who's an accountant, and he couldn't even help her. He was like, "You got to go hire somebody else who deals with this stuff. I don't know. I don't know what this is." And so when she called me, she gave me a call. She looked me up on Google, and she said, "Hey, I have this letter and I don't know what to do with it." And when I looked at it, I looked at all the facts and details. I was like, "Hey, based on what I'm seeing, the IRS owe you money. You don't owe them $20,000, but they do owe you about 2,000. They owe you 2,000, and I know how to get it for you. Okay." And so this was an easy case for me. Those CP 2000 letters, those are easy cases for me. Okay, let me just say that. A lot of cases are easy, but I love a good CP 2000, because I don't like when the IRS try to come back and say, hey, you owe us this, and that. Like, no, 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 no. And so she trusted me to handle this for her, and I corrected all the errors that the IRS said that they had on her versus what she had versus what was reality. I gave them what was needed, and guess what? They came back and they gave her refund, and she was so happy because she went from having issues sleeping at night. This woman told me she was tired of not being able to sleep at night because this was hanging over her head. And now she's able, you know what I'm about to say. Now she's able to fluff up her pillows. Okay, y'all know I love a good fluffing up your pillow. She now is able to fluff up her pillows. Okay, so those CP 2000 letters, if you were to get one, do not ignore it. Do not ignore it. Okay, we don't want to ignore that, because you ignoring that is you saying, I accept what you're saying, IRS. Give me the extra tax bill that you're saying. I'm okay with it. And you should never be okay with that. You should always seek help for that. Okay, so that's another letter. Another letter. This is the last one I'm going to talk to you about. The other letter that you don't want to ignore is when the IRS is auditing you. They're examining the information that you provided, and they want you to provide the receipts. They want you to provide the proof. The difference between a CP 2000 letter, that they're not necessarily asking you for your receipts or bank statements or anything. They just want to know, we got knowledge that you didn't tell us everything that you were supposed to. And so if this is right, let us know that it's right, and we'll send you this extra bill that you owe us. And if it's not right, correct it. That's all they're saying. When they send you a letter to say, hey, we have reason to believe that what you put on your tax return is inaccurate. Okay, so remember, the CP 2000, that's more about completeness, the completeness of your return. Did you include everything that you were supposed to? The audit one is about accuracy. Was the information that you put on the tax return accurate? You claim somebody, are they really your dependent? I need you to prove this to me. I need school records. I need all the things. You say you can take this deduction. Well, I need the proof that you spent XYZ for this deduction. I need the proof. I need the receipts. And that's an audit or examination letter that you do not want to ignore. Because if you ignore it, the process is a little bit more complicated to go back and try to reverse the decision that the IRS made as a result of you ignoring it. Okay. And so you don't want to ignore those letters. The CP 2000, the letters for examination or audit, those letter numbers are typically different depending on what it is. And then that levy letter, the CP 504 or LT 11, I'm giving you technical language so you can have this. So you can, if you see it, like, oh, Chastity said if I get a CP 504, I got to call her, right? She said if it's a CP 2000, I got you, right? I want you to have the language. All right. So I hope this live helped you so that you know the letters that you need to panic. When you get those letters that say, hey, you owe us, you know, that's kind of like, warning before destruction. Not that you need to ignore those, but they're not the panic letters. The panic letters are the levy letters, the CP 2000 letters, and the audit examination letters. Those are the letters where you're like, okay, I got to do something about this. Also, I just want to briefly talk to you about this one other thing that comes up is liens when you get the lien letter. Now, a lien letter is not detrimental as far as when it comes to your tax status, for example. When I say detrimental, when people say, "Oh, they're gonna lien my property," that's not it's not a panic button. It's only a panic button for you if you're trying to sell your home. Then the IRS would get a portion of the proceeds that would go towards your tax balance. And that's typically all it is. When you have a lien on your property, the IRS is saying if you were to refinance, if you were to sell this property, we're not taking the property. We're just getting our piece of the pie if you were to get some proceeds from it. That's all that means, okay? So it's not necessarily a panic letter unless you're someone who is going to be selling or refinancing and you don't want that to be in effect when it comes to that or be a deciding factor in regards to that. All right, so happy tax season, y'all. Happy tax season. I hope y'all are having a great start to this tax season. If you want to work with me, in the comments, I have a free informational session that is going on. Oh, today's Tuesday. Wednesday, that's tomorrow on February the 4th at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. Yes, today I was telling you about IRS letters so that you can have the knowledge about it, so that you can listen, do something about it if you are someone who has had that letter or may get one in the future, so that you know, right? My goal is to make sure you get the knowledge. When you have the knowledge, you have the power to act on what you need to do. And so on Wednesday, on tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, if you are interested in working with my company, we prepare tax returns. We do your bookkeeping for you, as well as, again, if you have any IRS issues, that's what we do. We're a holistic company. We don't leave you hanging. We're not just here during the springtime. We're here all year round. We're here all year round to support your tax needs that may arise, okay? And so if you want to work with me, sign up for our free informational session that's on February the 4th. That's tomorrow. We have another one coming up in 2 weeks on February the 18th. And if you are someone you do want to have a one-on-one appointment with me, I'm going to leave that link in the comments for you. If there's something specific that you need to talk to me about, you can schedule a one-on-one appointment. Those do come with a small investment, which is why I do the group informational sessions. Those are free. You can come in, you can learn about my company, how we do things around here, your expectations as a client, my expectations as your tax professional, as your provider, overseer, I like to say, over your taxes, over your money, right? Our expectations, everything, our back end. I'll show you my system, the system that you will be working out of with me, to communicate with me, to work with me in. I'll show you all of that. Plus, I will answer any tax questions that you may have. That is all handled in the informational session. So if you want to work with me, you want to learn about my company, learn more in detail, come off of social media, get intimate in a Zoom setting so I can get to know you, your business, and what you do, who you are. That's on February the 4th at 6:30 p.m. Central. Okay, it lasts for about an hour. People typically spend a whole hour with me. We do use that whole hour. You don't you I, It's preferable that you come in at 6:30 so you don't miss anything at the beginning. But let's say you can only come in at 7, then still come. Don't miss opportunity to get to know me, to get so I can get to know you, so we can see how we can move forward with working with each other. And so let me close with my benediction. Y'all know I got to give y'all my benediction. Okay. If you know me, then you know I am a follower of Jesus, and I do operate my business. It's my ministry. This is my ministry, and I will be lying to you if I told you that I didn't wake up this morning and sought the Lord first on what to do, on what to say, and how to be surrendered to Him on today. And so, with that said, my commission to you is in John chapter 10. In John chapter 10, the Jews, they were questioning, they were hearing all the things about Jesus, and they were like, listen, how long are you going to keep our soul in suspense? If you are the Christ, then just tell us. And Jesus said, I told you, but you do not believe me. The works I do, they testify concerning who I am, but you do not believe me because you are not my sheep. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. And they shall by no means perish, and I will give them eternal life, and nobody shall snatch them from my hand. The Father who gave them to me, nobody shall snatch them out of his hand. I and the Father are one. Why why has he given me this scripture as the benediction for this season, right? Partially is because you listen to a lot of things. You listen to a lot of things online, on your phones, whatever, right? And some things are going to resonate with you, and some things are not. And all of this is biblical. Whether you acknowledge it or not, everything around us is biblical. God is everywhere, okay? Literally. And when it comes to everything that you do, when you're like, oh, for example, when you watch certain TV shows, you may turn off a TV show because it didn't resonate with you, it didn't speak to you, you wasn't interested, right? So you clicked off. And so that's has to do with the scripture I just read to you. When you hear somebody's voice that resonates with you, you follow them, you get invested, you do all the things attached to them. But when you don't hear somebody's voice, you click off, you go the other way, you find somebody else, all the things, right? That is scriptural. That's biblical. And so I say this to say, if you are someone and you hear my voice, you resonate with what I say, you resonate with what I do, then follow me, get connected. I'm going to also put the link to my website in the comments. Visit my website if you're interested in working with me when it comes to this tax season. It's not required that you have to attend an informational session. That's more for your clarity, for your surety if you need it. But if you're someone you like chastity, I hear your voice. I already know that you're the one. Then you can visit my website. You can select a tax package that best fits your tax needs. Most people go with a gold package. If you have one business that's not an S Corp or a partnership, that's the gold package, okay? And so go ahead and sign up. Work with me, right? I would love to have you, right? I would love to have you. But ultimately, if you hear Jesus's voice, then follow him, okay? Then follow him. Like I said, God is everywhere. Jesus is everywhere. And whether you acknowledge it or not, I'm going to do my part to make sure that you hear the word, that you have the opportunity to taste and see that the Lord is good. Okay. For you to have the opportunity to taste and see that the Lord is good. So that's why I give you my benediction. And I'm going to remain faithful to that. I'm not going to be ashamed of the gospel. Okay. Like I said, this is my ministry. I'll be lying to you if I didn't tell you that God is all up and through over here. Okay. And so that's that's my benediction. I hope you enjoyed today's live. I hope you have a little bit more knowledge about IRS letters. The ones to, okay, thank you, IRS. And the ones to be like, oh, okay, IRS. All right. The ones that you want to panic about if you were to receive them. Connect with me, follow me, share this live with someone who needs to know about IRS letters, okay? Who needs to know about IRS letters and what to do about it in this season. All right, I'll talk to you on Wednesday for our Wellness Wednesdays, and I'll see you later.